The end of Elbaf is approaching, and with it comes the grand finale of the story that will change Luffy forever, granting him his final form, his absolute divine form, the true god in the eyes of the world. So if you want to know all about this and much more, stay with me, because that's exactly what I'm going to show you now. Since the beginning of time, humans have wanted to reach the heavens, challenge the gods, and touch the sun. And in One Piece, after more than 20 years of waiting, we finally arrived at Elbaf, the island of giants. But what few imagine is that this arc may reveal not only the origin of the myth of NIKA, but also how Luffy will literally become the god of the sun in the eyes of the entire world. All of this is connected to a real optical phenomenon that Oda has already used before in Skypiea, and it might be the key to understanding how the entire story of One Piece will come to an end. Let's start in Germany, on Mount Brocken. There, a phenomenon called the Brocken spectre occurs, where a person's shadow on top of the mountain is projected onto the clouds by the sun, creating a gigantic silhouette surrounded by a halo of light. Before understanding the science behind it, people who witnessed this phenomenon believed they were seeing a god or a monster. The shadow enlarged by the sun created the illusion of something divine and supernatural, and Oda has already used exactly this in One Piece in a brilliant way. Remember Skypiea? In chapter 221, gigantic winged silhouettes armed with spears appear among the clouds. Night suddenly falls, and those monstrous figures appear, terrifying everyone. It was only 70 chapters later that we discovered they were merely the shadows of the Shandian warriors reflected on the clouds. The darkness itself was caused by those same clouds blocking the sunlight, creating the illusion of night. Then in chapter 299, after ringing the golden bell, Luffy's own shadow is projected onto the clouds, creating that iconic double-page spread that conveyed his message to Mont Blanc Cricket, one of the most poetic moments in the entire manga. Now think about it. That silhouette in the sky holding a spear looks exactly like the only known depiction of NIKA we've ever seen. The sun god has always been shown among the clouds, wielding Viking-style weapons like a sword and shield or a sword and spear. And thanks to Vegapunk's speech, we now know that the myth of NIKA originated from Elbaf's folklore. The Buccaneers spread the story across the world through their faith, but it was among the giants that NIKA was born. So what would be the best way for the sun god to appear once again? By using the same Brocken spectre phenomenon, the silhouette of a man who becomes a god by standing as close to the sun as possible. And this makes perfect sense when you remember Luffy's love for swords and shields. It wouldn't be strange at all to see him using such weapons in battle, whether borrowing them from someone or even creating them with his powers, just like he did in Egghead, with his baseball helmet and goggles. And this is where the Adam Tree comes in. This colossal tree is divided into 3 realms: the underworld at its base, the realm of the sun in the middle where the giants live, and the realm of the heavens at the top, whose composition remains a mystery. And guess what? The top of this tree rises as high as a sky island, far above the clouds. If you know One Piece, you know that Luffy always fights at the highest point of every island. It happened at the top of the Dressrosa Palace, on the roof of Onigashima, above Fishman Island with Noah's Ark, and of course, in Skypiea. Luffy always ascends, and at the end of each arc, everyone looks up because judgment descends from the heavens. And that's no coincidence. For 28 years, Oda has been building this pattern. Even before obtaining Gear 5, Luffy was already seen as a godlike liberator in the eyes of the people. Because at the end of each arc, it's the entire kingdom that simultaneously witnesses his victory. And that's a crucial point. You can't write a Bible without witnesses. Every sacred text is born from testimonies, and it's the witnesses of Elbaf who confirm NIKA's origin among the giants. The sacred always manifests through the human, through a gaze, a word, a memory, like the sound of a heart beating in rhythm with the drums of liberation, just as Zunisha witnessed the return of Joy Boy in Onigashima. The same happened with Kaido, because Joy Boy was destined to be the one who would defeat him. It was through his complete defeat that Kaido could finally acknowledge that Luffy was the man of legend, and King became the key witness for the Lunarians, marking the official return of Joy Boy. In the same way, Elbaf must also bear witness to the appearance of NIKA, and for the giants there is only one way to prove it: through strength. The giants of Elbaf are known for 2 things: their immense size, but above all, their pride. They are capable of fighting for an entire century just to determine who is right. It is through strength that warriors recognize what is just, and they are never afraid to acknowledge their savior, to be grateful for life, and even raise him to the rank of a god. Remember Dressrosa? It was there that Hajruddin, saved by Usopp, gave rise to God Usopp. So imagine what could happen at the end of Elbaf, when Luffy liberates not just a single giant, but the entire nation from the threat of Imo and the Holy Knights. But there's more. The Adam Tree is clearly inspired by Yggdrasil, the world tree from Norse mythology, which connects all realms of existence. And in Norse mythology, there exists a sacred well from which all water flows, the place where destiny is woven. It is there that three Norns descend the threads of fate before the fountain, weaving the tapestry of time, where past, present and future intertwine. And that's exactly what we see with the mural in Elbaf. It isn't a tapestry, but a drawing that, even though it dates back 800 years, seems to foretell the future. And this fits perfectly with the narrative of One Piece, where the past, present and future constantly blur together. In chapter 1133, we discover the source of the warriors, a body of water so immense that ordinary humans could easily mistake it for the sea. This source was formed from fossilized fragments of the Adam tree and is nourished by waterfalls cascading down from level to level along the tree. This means that at the very top of the tree, there must exist the true source of this water, the origin and the end of the world, the equivalent of Urd's well, the sacred fountain that feeds all existence. And there's a very important detail about Elbaf that often goes unnoticed. Time works differently there. Louis Arnott mentions in chapter 1132 a temporal anomaly in Warland, where, while the biological clocks of living beings remain the same, 1 day in Elbaf equals 3 days in the rest of the world. This explains why giants live 3 times longer than humans, and also why there's this sense of lost time that some characters experience. Scopa Gaban was convinced that he had spent far less time among the giants than he actually did. And here's something fascinating. This confusion between space and time is present throughout One Piece. The log poses, which indicate direction, are worn on the wrist like watches. The eternal poses, which show location, look like hourglasses, symbols not only of geography but also of time itself. Even the Grand Line functions like a timeline, where you can only move forward, never sideways, creating a chronological journey in which each island becomes both a physical milestone and a moment in time. By traveling through space, the Straw Hats are, in fact, traveling through time, and by completing the entire tour of the Grand Line, time itself would form a loop. From the very beginning, we're told that Laugh-Tale lies at the end of the Grand Line, but we're also told that the last island of the ocean is actually Lodestar. This means that Laugh-Tale lies beyond the end, and in a loop, beyond the end can only be the beginning. At the end of the New World, at the end of the Grand Line, we would find ourselves right next to Reverse Mountain, and once again the future meets the past. That's why Oda insists that 4 road poneglyphs are required to find Laugh-Tale, even though 3 would already be enough to determine 3-dimensional coordinates, 1 for latitude, 1 for longitude, and 1 for altitude. Just like in our world, the 4th would represent a temporal coordinate, completing a 4-dimensional frame, because Laugh-Tale is not just in a different place, but in a different time. In One Piece, space constantly intertwines with time. The One Piece isn't a question of where it is, it's a question of when it is. So putting all these pieces together, imagine the following scenario. Luffy reaches the top of the Adam tree, the heavenly realm, still unexplored. Up there, above the clouds and close to the sun, he faces the Holy Knights, or some great final threat. His gigantic silhouette is projected across the sky, visible to all of Elbaf, just as it happened in Skypiea in chapter 299, but this time, his shadow holds a sword and a shield. Exactly like the ancient depictions of NIKA, all the giants lift their heads and witness the divine appearance of the sun god, exactly as described in the sacred texts passed down by their ancestors from generation to generation. But here lies a problem. NIKA is the symbol of the giants. Every giant dreams of becoming him, and the people of Elbaf are divided over who the true NIKA really is, whether he is a liberator or a destroyer. Each giant wants to embody NIKA in their own way, according to their personal interpretation of the myth. So how could they possibly accept that a simple human, not a giant, is the true NIKA? That's where the source of the warriors and the concept of baptism come in. After creating his gigantic silhouette in the sky, establishing the image of the sun god, Luffy would fall into the Well of Urd, which lies at the top of the Adam tree. From there, cascading waterfalls would carry him down through the tree, all the way to the source of the warriors at its base, entering as a human and emerging as divine. A baptism that transforms and reveals his true nature. This would explain all the Christian symbolism surrounding NIKA that we've seen throughout the series. The buccaneer churches, the pastors, the crosses, and all the biblical references like the Great Flood, Noah's Ark, and even Adam and Eve. In the Bible, Jesus lived as an ordinary man until his baptism in the River Jordan, when his divine nature was revealed publicly. Although the scriptures presented him as the Son of God since birth, it was through baptism that this truth became visible to all. The same would happen with Luffy, a public revelation of what he already was in the unseen, the liberating hero that the world has been waiting and praying for over 900 years. But this time, No one would be able to deny it. Now let's talk about what this means for the future of Elbaf and for One Piece as a whole. This end of the arc would mark a true turning point in the story where Luffy, always faithful to himself and his pure-hearted nature, would set his humanity into motion, not in service of a kingdom, an island, or a nation, but this time, for the entire world. And Elbaf owes a debt to humanity that must be repaid. During the reign of King Harold, Elbaf nearly collapsed, completely cursed by famine, natural disasters, and revolts. The giants were saved by humans who arrived by ship, bringing vital resources. Chapter 1154 makes it explicit. We shall forever be grateful for this precious aid. One day, when they are in need, we will repay them with all our hearts. And that day has come. The debt will be repaid through something Elbaf has never done in its entire history: going to war alongside humans. In Chapter 1138, Ripley confirms this. Throughout all of Elbaf's history, we have waged wars against other races, but as far as I know, we have never allied with them. This would fulfill exactly what is shown on the Adam Tree mural, the one that depicts the future, where all races fight together as one. But who would lead the giants into this war? That role would fall to Loki, the cursed prince, currently chained. Since his first appearance in Chapter 1130, Loki has spoken of Ragnarok, the end of the world in Norse mythology. He even appears on the mural, holding a spear, which is actually the broken handle of the Ragnarok hammer. After the hammer shatters, transforming from hammer to spear, Loki would be redeemed through Luffy, who would invite him to join his crew, or his grand fleet. Meanwhile, Hasrudin would become the new king of Elbaf, the political ally of the Straw Hat Pirates, fulfilling the dream he's carried since Dressrosa, to unite all giant tribes and make Elbaf open to the rest of the world. Because ever since the death of Harold and the fall of his heir, the legitimate crown prince, the country has been in a deep political crisis. The giants need a leader. They need someone they can all agree to follow. They also need to follow the sun, and by following Luffy, they can finally forgive Loki, honor Harold's legacy, and fulfill his dream to make Elbaf a nation open to the world. And the only way to do that is by destroying the world government, the final obstacle in Harold's path. Everything would come together perfectly, the debt repaid, the dream fulfilled, and NIKA revealed. And then comes Ragnarok, the end of the world that Locke had foretold, the final war between Joy Boy and all his allies against the world government. NIKA versus Emu, the very battle painted on the mural of Elbaf. From Alabasta to Dressrosa, from Wano to the Fishman Kingdom of Ryugu, from the giants of Elbaf to the minks of Zoo, from the Shandians to the Skypians. Everyone Luffy met along his journey would gather to fight by his side in the Great War for the One Piece. By destroying the Red Line, the Sun God would finally end the division of the world and its inequalities, creating a new era, a new globe, just as Kazuki Toki had once prophesied. Mary J. Wise would be destroyed, along with Fishman Island, but the Noah's Ark would carry everyone to live on the surface. The Shandians would ring the bell of Shandora once again, to guide humanity, all living together on the same level, in the same place, in a single piece. As the text of Harley foretold, humanity would no longer be divided by the four seas. And then, as written long ago, they will meet again. The Straw Hat would become a divine figure, a god of destruction and liberation, just as described in ancient texts. The ancient hero known as Joy Boy, the sun god known as NIKA, but above all, the freest man in the world, Monkey D. Luffy. And it will all begin in Elbaf, when the giants raise their heads and see, for the first time in 900 years, what their ancestors once witnessed. The silhouette of the sun god dancing in the sky, laughing and bringing freedom. Because after 800 long years, the heavens will finally open, and something immense will awaken within them. The true NIKA, not as a myth or a legend, but as a living reality, proven through a phenomenon that unites science and faith, reason and belief. A man who becomes a god by touching the sun, not through magic, but because that is how gods have always been born, through the eyes and the faith of those who witness their deeds.